So now we are in chapter 3, that is producing data. We will cover these points in this chapter one by one. So first part is sources of data. So obtaining data, we have to be aware of drawing conclusions from our own experience or hearsay. Anecdotal data represent individual cases that often come to our attention because they are striking in some way. We tend to remember these cases because they are unusual. The fact that they are unusual means that they may not be representative of any larger group of cases. For example, if a magazine article says about Pilates, that men needs this form of exercise more than women do, and it describes that the benefits of two men received from these classes. So this type of example is the anecdotal data. Whereas the available data are the data that were produced in the past for some other purpose, but that may help answer a present question inexpensively. The library and the internet are sources of available data. Some questions requiring data produced specifically to answer them. This leads to designing observational or experimental studies. Sample surveys are a special type of data collection that usually aims to discover the opinions of people on certain topics. In a sample survey, a sample of individuals is selected from a larger population of individuals. For example, opinion polls may report the views of the entire country based on interviews with a sample of about 1,000 people. So one can study a small part of the population in order to gain information about the population as a whole, and conclusions drawn from a sample are valid only when the sample is drawn in a well-defined way. And what is a well-defined way? We will learn about this in section 3.3. Now, observation versus experiment. When our goal is to understand cause and effect, experiments are the only source of fully convincing data. The distinction between observational study and experiment is one of the most important in statistics. The observational study observes individuals and measures variables of interest but does not attempt to influence their responses. The purpose is to describe some group or situation, whereas in an experiment deliberately imposes some treatment on individuals to measure their responses. The purpose is to study whether the treatment causes a change in the response. So in contrast with observational studies, experiments do not just observe individuals or ask them questions, they actively impose some treatment in order to measure the response. So to understand it, we can take an example. Some people drink coffee before sleeping. So if we get their data and try to learn something about them, then it's observational study. But if we get 100 people and 250 people, we deliberately ask them to have coffee before their sleep, and for 250 people we restrict that they cannot have coffee before their sleep. So this kind of thing is an experiment. So this is the difference mainly. So confounding observational studies of the effect of one variable on another often fail to establish cause and effect because of confounding between the explanatory variable and one or more lurking variables. We already learned about lurking variable in chapter 2. This is a variable that is not among the explanatory or response variables in a study, but that may influence the response variable. Whereas confounding occurs when two variables are associated in such a way that their effects on a response variable cannot be distinguished from each other. Well-designed experiments take steps to avoid confounding. So design of experiments. So an experiment is a study in which we actually do something, a treatment to people, animals, or objects. That is known as the experimental units to observe the response. And here is some basic vocabulary of the experiment. So experimental unit is the smallest entity to which a treatment is applied When the units are human beings, they are often called subjects. So if we are having an experiment on human beings, then they will be called as subjects. An explanatory variable in an experiment are often called factors. A simple specific condition applied to the individuals in an experiment is called a treatment. If an experiment has several explanatory variables, a treatment is a combination of specific value of these variables. These terms we understand in more details in later slides. So subject, as we learned earlier, individual or particularly a person upon which treatments are applied in an experiment. Treatment, a specific experimental condition imposed on the subject. Sometimes this referred only to the treatment with the active ingredient. Whereas explanatory variable, which are also called factor, that is a set of experiments imposed on the subjects that may affect the outcome of the study. Then what is the response variable? The outcome measured on each subject to reveal the effect of that treatment. So these are more definitions, that is control and placebo. Control is a treatment without the active ingredient, either no treatment or a placebo treatment that is imposed on the subjects. What is placebo? Placebo is a dummy treatment that outwardly resembles the active treatment. So if active group is getting a medication that is blue in color, so placebo group will also receive the similar medicine, but that could be a sugar pill without an active ingredient. Similarly, if there is an injection with glucose rather than the vaccine, etc. So here is an example. Each factor has two or more labels, that is different values of the factor. Combinations of factor labels are called treatments. The table below shows independent variables, factors, labels and treatments for a hypothetical experiment. So we will understand by this example. So in this hypothetical experiment, the researcher is studying the possible effect of vitamin C and vitamin E on health. So there are two factors, dosage of vitamin C and dosage of vitamin E. So what are the factors here? Dosage of vitamin C and dosage of vitamin E. The vitamin C factor has three levels, that is 0 milligram, 250 milligram and 500 milligram. Whereas the vitamin E factor has two levels, that is 0 milligram and 400 milligram per day. The experiment has 6 treatments, that is treatment 1 is 0 milligram of E and 0 milligram of C. Treatment 2 is 0 milligram of E and 250 milligram of C, and so on. So now here's an example of the application. So to compare 3 new test fertilizers, a farmer applies them to several cornfields, and each field is divided into 3 plots. And 3 fertilizers are randomly assigned, one to each plot within each field. So harvested corn yield is compared for the 3 fertilizers. So here the individual are each corn plot and treatments are 3 test fertilizers that we are using. Explanatory variable is fertilizers type. Response variable would be corn yield, if it's better or bad. There is no control and no placebo. So we now already know lurking variable, confounding and interaction from the last two chapters. So here we again revise it. So lurking variable is the variable that affects the relationship between the response variable and the explanatory variable, but is not included among the variables studied. Whereas confounding is a condition where the effect of two different variables on the response variable cannot be distinguished from each other. Interaction is a condition where the effect of one variable on the response variable changes depending on the level of another variable. So here's the example of lurking variable. We got nicotine patches example. In 1994 at Rochester, Minnesota, 240 smokers were randomly assigned to receive either nicotine patches or placebo patches. After 8 weeks, 46% of the nicotine patch group had quit, while only 20% of the placebo group had quit. So here is a lurking variable there. What is the presence or absence of other smokers in the home? So if there were other smokers in the home, it was studied, we found that only 31% had quit smoking after 8 weeks of nicotine patch therapy. If there were no other smokers in the home, 58% had quit smoking after 8 weeks of nicotine patch therapy, whereas in the placebo group, 20% quit smoking whether there were other smokers in the home or not. So the presence or absence of other smoker in the home affected the association between the treatment and whether smokers quit or not. So this is a very good example of lurking variable. So now here is an example for the confounding. So Jane wants to determine whether the cheaper store brand cleans her clothes as effectively as the more expensive name brand. So which of these proposed studies has confounding? So in the proposal A, there was a name brand and store brand and hot water and cold water. And there are equal batches, three batches, and these type. And in proposal B, name brand was used with hot water and store brand was used with cold water. So in proposal B, brand of detergent is confounded with water temperature. Their effects on cleanliness index cannot be separated. So the confounding is the temperature of water here. We will not be able to understand from this proposal. So what is the need for comparative experiments? Experiments are the preferred method for examining the effect of one variable on another. By imposing the specific treatment of interest and controlling other influences, we can pin down cause and effect. Good designs are essential for effective experiment, just as they are for sampling. So here's an example. A study studied to reduce test anxiety had students write an essay about their feelings concerning an upcoming exam. Students write about feelings, observe exam scores. The scores on the exam, the second exam of the semester were compared with those in the first exam. The mean score on the second exam was higher than the mean score on the first exam. So is the writing exercise effective? And how can we tell about it? And are we certain the increase is due to the writing exercises? So the text anxiety experiment was poorly designed to evaluate the effect of writing exercise. The lack of comparison group is one problem with it, and another is the placebo effect. The end result of this study suffers from biasness. The placebo effect occurs when people respond favorably to personal attention or to any treatment that they hope will help them. And in comparative experiments, subjects are assigned to one of two or more groups. In many studies, two such groups are the control groups and the treatment groups. So a study is biased if it systematically favors certain outcomes. So the remedy for confounding is to perform a comparative experiment in which some units receive one treatment and similar units receive another. Most well-designed experiments compare two or more treatments. Comparison alone is not enough if the treatments are given to groups that differ greatly. Bias will result from that. The solution to this problem of bias is the random assignment. So we always need the randomization. In an experiment, random assignment means the experimental units are assigned to treatments at random, that is, using some sort of chance process. So here's the example of a randomized comparative experiment. In a completely randomized design, the treatments are assigned to all the experimental units completely by chance. Some experiments may include a control group that receives an inactive treatment or an existing baseline treatment. So here we can see that there is a random assignment. So if one patient is coming, it can either go to group 1 or group 2. So there is no favoredness or nothing is given to any patient. So this is the random treatment for the random assignment, and it can go to any group. So now the question arises how to randomize. So one way to randomize an experiment is to rely on random digits to make choices in a neutral way. And we can use the random sampling function provided by most statistical software. And here is a small technique it is given to randomize. So principles of experimental design. Randomized comparative experiments are designed to give good evidence that differences in the treatments actually cause the differences we see in the responses. So principles of experimental design. First, control. Control for lurking variables that might affect the response most simply by comparing two or more treatments. And randomize is use chance to assign experimental units to treatments. Then replication, use enough experimental units in each group to reduce chance variation in the results. In principle, experiments can give good evidence for causation. We take the above steps to ensure that the only reasonable explanation for differences observed is due to the treatment imposed. So the cautions about experimentations, the logic of a randomized comparative experiment depends on our ability to treat all the subjects in exactly the same way, except for the actual treatments being compared. So in a double-blind experiment, neither the subjects nor those who interact with them and measure the responses variable know which treatment a subject is receiving. And the most serious potential weakness of experiment is lack of realism. The subjects or treatments or setting of an experiment may not realistically duplicate the condition we really want to study. Nonetheless, the random comparative experiment, because of its ability to give convincing evidence for causation, is one of the most important ideas in statistics. So before going further, here is an example to understand single blind and double blinded studies. Single blinded, the experimenter knows, but the participants do not know which treatments they are receiving. Whereas in double blind, neither the experimenter nor the participant knows which treatments participants are receiving. So I think this will be clearer now. So block design, completely randomized designs are the simplest statistical design for experiments, but just as with sampling, there are times when the simplest method does not yield the most precise results. So a block is a group of experimental units that are known before the experiment to be similar in some way that is expected to affect the response to the treatment. In a block design, the random assignment of experimental units to treatment is carried out separately within each block. So we will understand these things in later slides. So what is a block? A group of individuals that are similar with respect to some characteristics known before the experiment begins, and the characteristics is expected to affect the response to the treatments. And it often equal in number to the number of treatments. And what is a randomized block design? So an experimental design where the random assignment of individual to treatment is carried out separately within each block. We will understand it by an example. So in a study, we have to give the 5 treatments, treatment A, B, C, D, E. And here we can see they are we are looking, they are of different hereditary, and some are similar, like this, like for example, this is similar to this is similar to this, whereas this is similar to this. So they are having similar characteristics, almost similar characteristics. So if we are going to randomize from this group, it would be a very bad design. So we will first make a block design. So we will see how we will do it. So now here we can see first we divided mice with similar characteristics and heredity into group. So here we made a group with name is litter number 1 having the same characteristics and heredity, and similarly litter 4, and similarly we divided and make block of it. And we already know we had 5 treatment groups, so we can see with the definition that there are 5 mice in each block. So now when we have to give the treatment, so what would be the randomization here? So if we got a number 2, so if we got number 2 and we have to give treatment A, then we will give it to this mouse. And if the other number for the next treatment it's 5, then we will give this mouse treatment B. Similarly, we will randomize in each litter, all the treatments in each litter. So this is a randomized block design with 5 treatments. So this is a very good experimental design. How we will see it? First, we had 6 litters of rats, and here we can see that for the randomization of the treatment, we got the 5 treatments to 5 different rats, and for the replication we had 6 litters. And what we wanted to see for the rats, if after taking those treatments, who will complete the maze earlier. So if we can see here in the treatment group, the blue treatment, that is either B or any treatment group it can be. So blue one, we can see that they did complete their maze very significantly in less time. So now the matched pair. Matched pair is a common type of randomized block design for comparing two treatments. And the idea is to create blocks by matching pairs of similar experimental units. So a matched pair design is a randomized block experiment in which each block consists of a matching pair of similar experimental units. So we will understand it. So matched pairs are a special case of randomized block designs. Block pair of individuals or pair of measurements. Explanatory variable two treatments. As two individual or two measurements are taken, so there will be two treatments. And example is like twins, each receiving a treatment. So if one twin is getting a medication while the other is not, and we are getting the blood work of both the twins. So the other twin will be the control of the first twin. Whereas two treatments on each individual would be like if some person having regular headaches. So we give some medication A, and then we saw all the effect, how it works on him or her. And after the washout period, we gave the same person medication B and recorded all the effects and blood work we did earlier. And this is the two treatments on each individual, whereas measurements before and after treatment on each individual is like pre and post. So if we want to see some effect, so we can do like before having food and after having food, or before having exercise or after having exercise. So on the same individual, we are taking two different before and after treatments measurements. And three principles of experiments are randomly assigning the two treatments to the two individuals within each pair or block. That is randomizing the order of applying the treatments to each individual. It means that if there are two twins, we can give any twin the medication. If there are two treatments, so we can give any twin that treatment. Similarly, for two treatments on each individual, we can give either medicine B first or medicine A first. And for the replicating, we are not going to do the same thing on only one twin or only on one person. For replicating, we will have the same tests on different twin groups, or if two treatments on each individual, there are different individual have taking two treatments like this. and then we compare the two treatments and each pair serves as its own control. So here is an example, that is dieting example of paired individuals, and dieting with exercise and dieting without exercise is compared using 20 sets of identical twins. So here explanatory variable is whether dieting includes exercise. A response variable is their cholesterol level. Block is a pair of identical twins. What is the comparison? It is in between two treatments. Randomization is we can randomly select one twin to diet with exercise and the other to diet without exercise. And how we are replicating? So we are having 20 pair of identical twins.